Hello, this is Nehemiah Pitts III. I'm the chair of the Community Technology and Telecommunications Commission, and I'm delighted to be here today with a conversation taking place with Janelle Ramirez, the program coordinator from Texas Folk Life, and a project specifically, Stories from Deep in the Heart. With that, I'd like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. Thank you for being here, Janelle.
Thank you, Nehemiah. So as Nehemiah stated, I run one of the programs at Texas Folk Life. It's called Stories from Deep in the Heart, and it's a audio storytelling training program.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here again, especially in this trying time. One of the reasons why we've been focused on our trials is, of course, the pandemic and the persistent challenges of the digital divide, which our community has been focused on. Certainly, the commission has been focused on, and Texas Folk Life has been focused on as well. So I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk about this special program and ways that Texas Folk Life has been managing the digital divide.
Sure. So I specifically have been working with virtual programs since about August of 2020. And I have been working with schools and a little bit with community members, but we've mostly worked with high school students and done completely virtual programs this entire time. Part of what we've been doing is developing asynchronous materials that classrooms can implement on their own. We've also used platforms like Google Classroom to kind of create a landing space for that class to interact with each other and to access materials. We've trained people to use other platforms like Zencaster, which allow for remote interviews, and that's kind of what I've been doing in a nutshell. Just kind of finding ways to use different tools that allow us to still be engaged and create a sense of community with the classes that we're working with.
That's wonderful. I'd like to give you the opportunity to really share more about those classes, not just the challenges of managing the digital divide and then managing the pandemic, but if you would, share more about the programs themselves and the classes.
Sure. So one of the partnerships we've had throughout this time is with Texas School for the Blind, and we have been working entirely remotely with them. We started a pilot program back in the spring and did a summer program, and now we're into the third iteration of that partnership for the fall. We've basically, been providing our usual training, but through a virtual setting. In the case of that program, there have been in-person facilitators that are part of the school that kind of allow us to transmit that material more effectively. Another program we did was with Aikens High School, and that was entirely virtual with the teacher in the classroom. And again, we essentially were able to provide materials virtually and do audio editing and that sort of thing remotely, and have the kids kind of work on their own on those projects.
Nice, nice. Would you like to share more about some of the client stories and examples of those projects?
Sure. So yeah. Again, over the summer, I think the program we did with TSB was really successful. It was I think a 4-week program, and the kids basically produced their own podcast stories. Each kid kind of made their own story. In that particular program, they were able to go out and record interviews with community members, and then come back and edit that audio. Myself and 2 producers would essentially listen to that audio and provide assistance in creating that content, all remotely.
Outstanding. This sounds like something that you're very passionate about and have experience in. How long have you been involved in this, and what brought you into this work?
I've been working with Texas Folklife for about 1 year, and I have a background in music and audio, so I have been, working with audio editing and music production for a long time. I work also as I am a PhD candidate in ethnomusicology, so I have done research with different kinds of communities and have experience doing ethnographic interviews and that sort of thing. So it was important to me to, be able to engage with the community through my work and combine that with my interest in technology and to do that in a way that is productive and helpful to that community.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm really curious, especially. Well, first off, congratulations for your PhD track and all your hard work. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask uh, if there was a direct connection with Texas Folklife before you began as a program coordinator, or did you have any involvement with their work in the community prior?
I was familiar with their work, yes. I do know some of the people that work there just through my previous academic circles. So I was definitely familiar with some of the work that Texas Folklife was doing before I joined the organization. And I mean, there's a lot. We have a lot of programs. We have an apprenticeship program, Big Squeeze, which focuses on accordion music throughout the state, and I mean those are kind of the big ones in my program. Of course, we have exhibits at the gallery, so it's a pretty robust organization, and just happy to join and be part of it.
Outstanding. Well, I'd like to certainly continue with uh, more on your thoughts. I'd like to get an understanding, if I could, about some of the challenges you faced and how, as an organization or as an individual, you've been able to embrace those challenges to either get things done personally amid the digital divide and that's been faced because of the pandemic or prior,
Mhm.
and how things have gone.
Sure. I think as an organization, we've been really good about using the tools that are available to continue to reach audiences and to engage with the community. In some ways, this has been a challenge, in the sense that we can't physically be in the same space as people, as which is something, of course, we're all facing. In my own program, that has had to, led me to adjust the way that I do things. Normally, we would go into a classroom with a bunch of Zoom recorders. We would be able to physically show people how to do the recordings, and it would be a lot more hands-on. So adjusting to a virtual space has definitely forced us to rethink those sorts of in-person engagements, especially things that are so hands-on like that. On the other hand, we have been able to reach a much wider audience. One of the things about Texas Folklife is that it's a statewide organization. We are the state's folklore organization. Even though we're a nonprofit, we're not actually part of the state government. We are, as part of our mission, trying to serve the people of Texas. And Texas is a big place. So, using these digital tools and kind of finding more creative ways to use them has actually led us to be able to reach a wider audience within Texas and to work with people that it may have been difficult to work with before because they're so far away. One of the examples of that is this Folklife Network of Texas that is a lot of scholars and researchers throughout the state, folklorists, and we have people that are located in Austin, but also El Paso, San Antonio, Corpus Christi, etc. And so there's now these monthly meetings that happen on Zoom, and we're able to continue that conversation in a way that maybe in the past we might not have gravitated towards. So it's really allowed us to rethink things and to, reach thousands of people through Facebook live streaming and that sort of thing that in the past we might have had, the ambience of a live concert, which is, again, something we miss a lot, but there is also something to be said in expanding our reach in that way.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I know when you described earlier those classroom scenarios and the workshops and the collaboration, it seems like collaboration has been a consistent way that Texas Folk Life has been able to expand their reach,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to, of course, the online presence. Would you like to talk more about some of those collaborations and how you've been able to leverage them?
Yeah, I think a great example of that is our apprenticeship program. So that's another statewide program. It's not something I personally work on, but that program basically pairs artists with apprentices who would like to learn a folk or traditional art. And so with the pandemic, there hasn't been the opportunity to do a lot of that in person. And so my colleague Pete had created a self-documentation guide so that these apprentices and the teachers can document what they're doing on their own rather than us going in and documenting it. And so in some ways that's actually adding to what we're trying to do as an organization and letting us do it better because we're empowering people to do it themselves. Whereas in the past we might have gone in with a professional videographer or something to collect that content.
That's a very good point. It seems to be a consistent theme, really, when it comes down to it, that necessity is the mother of invention, that, there's really an opportunity for people to innovate and to create new things and new ways and to enter into new realms outside of their comfort zone. Would you maybe share some examples of client scenarios where you've seen clients delve in and then perhaps get so excited that the next thing you know they're running off and they're doing things that you can't even imagine?
I would love to see a more of that. I the thing I'm thinking of is one of the kids that we worked with at Aikens High School, who really loved the remote interview format and just really did a great job with it, and seemed excited about it. The kids at TSB as well were really, very excited by their projects. The fact that they, got to go out into the community and interview people that they would never have interacted with in the past. This was all, of course done in like a socially distant outdoor setting, but we were able to find a way to kind of still have that contact with community members in a safe way, and to come back to the community of the school and the classroom and share that, even though we're not in the same space. I think that I could see that these participants really got a lot out of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When I think about that dynamic as you described, it really makes me think about how things have been somewhat of a roller coaster in terms of risk assessments or threat, if you will. And as a result, you've seen organizations go from doing quite a few things online to then working towards doing things in person, and then having to make decisions on what to do and how to prioritize planning and programming. Would you maybe talk about some of those dynamics and how Texas Folk Life and your program with Stories from the Deep and the Heart have adjusted to either doing things in person or online and maybe some kind of hybrid approach?
Sure. I think we in some ways try to take it on a case by case basis. As an organization, we've been really good about making sure that our staff is safe and that everyone feels comfortable with the work that they're doing. So we've generally been working remotely, but when it comes to specific projects, we talk to the community that we're working with and kind of assess what their needs are, and if they are comfortable with meeting outdoors and we agree on that, then we try to make that work. If it's a situation like sometimes with schools, there's a lot of bureaucracy and that sort of thing. So even though the teacher may want to do something in person, sometimes that's not possible and we have to find a workaround. And so it's not a one size fits all thing. I think we really have been good about adapting to the needs of the people that we're working with, while making sure that we are doing things safely.
Very nice. Well, with that, I'd like to kind of transition, as you mentioned, bureaucracy. I couldn't help but appreciate and understand what you mean by that, and some of the challenges of that. We're bound by the same kinds of dynamics, of course, being the capital of Texas, and then reliant upon the state government and the governor to mandate or to lift mandates to create flexibility in certain ways. Would you perhaps talk about how you have been able to actually manage some of those different mandates and or lack of mandates to maintain the programming, but to do it in a safe way?
I can say it's not easy. Sometimes we've wanted to do, for example, a listening party for a project that we completed, and had to worry about whether people are really going to wear their masks because there's no law that tells them that they have to, or it changes all the time. At one point, we had an ordinance, and then we couldn't have an ordinance, or there's just it's constantly shifting. So I think we are careful about not wanting to put our staff or contractors or whoever we're working with in a position where you have to police people and tell them to put on their masks or something like that. So that can be really difficult, because we are an organization that has been really invested in like performances and live presentations, and so it's takes a lot out of the experience to just completely take that away. But then we have to weigh the consequences of that, and depending on the size of the event and who's going to be attending, we might conclude that it's really not the best idea to leave these kinds of things up to chance. But as we've all been dealing with, things are constantly changing, and so what worked in July may not work in September, it may not work in November. Now you see festivals that are requiring proof of negative tests or vaccines and that sort of thing, and so everybody is kind of experimenting with all these different approaches, and I think we're just taking it one day at a time.
That's understandable. I can definitely relate to that. And at the same time, as I hear you, as a community leader, I feel a sense of responsibility to try to do my best to strategize and guide our leaders and policy in a way that will create positive outcomes for our community, to bridge the digital divide, and to get people the insights they need with technology, access to the internet and devices, particularly through organizations like Texas Folklife. But we recognize that we can't have everything figured out. And I'd like to ask you, what would you like to ask of leaders like myself and or others from the state and or the city to do more to help when it comes to bridging the digital divide and to helping get people connected and to connect them to your services?
I think it's really important to ask people what they want and what their needs are. I think we are well intentioned in wanting to go into communities and help bridge this digital divide, and it's definitely something I think we all want to see happen. But the nuances of the way that happens, I think, have to kind of come from the community itself. And so, what I would say is that it's important to ask, to, if you're going to try to provide solutions to people, it's important to try to see the things from their perspective first, and assess what their needs are according to them, and then work together to provide those solutions.
That's a very important way to put it, and very poignant, actually. With that, what can we do then here at the City of Austin? How can we help you?
I think just listening, just to summarize what I said, listening is just so important, and I think we all need to be better at it. We can all work on it, try to listen a little better, and hopefully through listening to each other, we can, uh, work towards solving some of these issues.
Indeed, indeed. Well, with that, I'd like to give you an opportunity to share anything else that you'd like to about your program, about some of the challenges you faced, and/or a thing that you might hope for and to see from the City of Austin.
Yeah, I think as an organization, we've found a lot of new ways to do things. This situation has really forced us to innovate, and that's, I think, a really positive thing. And I know that other organizations are going through the same thing right now. Artists are going through the same thing, and I think that what the city can do is to, again, just listen to feedback, and adapt in and try to support these processes as best as they can.
Wonderful. Well, I definitely take that challenge head on, and appreciate the direction from you as a community leader with this program, and the leadership of your organization. And unless there's anything else you'd like to share about your program, Janelle, just really want to thank you for your time today, and for joining this conversation, and to tell you to certainly keep up the great work, and wish you the best of luck with your PhD track, and everything that you're doing.
Thank you.